You have probably never met a wealthy person who tracks their coffee. Sit with that for a second. The people whose bank accounts you would actually want to trade for are not the ones agonizing over a $4 latte at the end of the month. And yet, that is exactly what you have been trained to do. Somewhere along the way, you were sold the idea that the road to money runs through a spreadsheet, that if you could just be disciplined enough, organized enough, restrained enough, the wealth would follow. So you downloaded the app, you set up the categories, you color-coded your spending, and here you are, still tight at the end of the month, still bracing a little every time a bill lands. This is not a video about how to budget better. This is a video about why budgeting quietly keeps you broke, and what the people who are never broke quietly do instead. Let me define broke, because the word is slippery. Broke is not the same as poor. Poor is about how much comes in. Broke is about the gap between what comes in and what stays. And by that definition, plenty of people earning six figures are broke. They have the income of a wealthy person and the balance sheet of someone who is one missed paycheck from panic. Those people are not failing at budgeting, they are succeeding at the wrong game. Because budgeting, the way most of us are taught it, is a poverty activity dressed up as responsibility. It keeps your eyes locked on the smallest numbers in your financial life while the largest ones go completely untouched. You can audit your grocery receipts for 10 years and never once ask whether your money's doing anything at all other than sitting still. I want to say something here that I do not think gets said enough. The most financially anxious people I have ever come across are rarely the poorest. They are the ones in the middle, the ones performing control, the person with the immaculate spreadsheet and a permanent knot in their stomach, the person who can tell you exactly what they spent on takeaway last March, but has no real idea what they are actually worth, not even within $50,000. Control over the small stuff becomes a substitute for power over the big stuff. It feels like progress. It photographs like discipline, and it leaves you almost exactly where you started. Traditional budgeting fails for the same reason strict dieting fails. It runs on restriction, restriction runs on willpower, and willpower runs out. You set the rules in a burst of motivation, usually in January. You hold the line for a few weeks. Then life happens. You overspend in one category. The system tells you that you failed, and the failure feels bad enough that you stop looking. By February, the app is closed. By March, it is deleted. The cycle is so predictable it is almost funny, except that millions of people run it every single year and blame themselves every single time. The problem was never your discipline. The problem was a system built in a way that no normal human being can actually sustain. So, if budgeting is the wrong game, what is the right one? The people who never run out of money are not playing a harder version of your game. They are playing a completely different one, with far fewer moves. 5 of them, really. None of them involve a spreadsheet. All of them can be set up in a single afternoon and then mostly left alone. Let me walk you through them. The first rule is the one everything else rests on. Pay yourself first, then go quiet. Most people have the order of operations backwards. They spend first, they live, and then at the very end of the month, they try to save whatever survived, which is usually nothing, because nothing ever survives a full month of being last in line. Think about how the backwards version actually plays out. Your pay lands, and for a few days, you feel flush. The big number in the account makes everything feel affordable. You are not reckless. You are just living, and living quietly costs more than you ever notice in the moment. By the 3rd week, the big number is a medium number, and by the last few days, it is a small and slightly worrying number. There is nothing left to save, not because you were irresponsible, but because saving was never going to win a fight against 30 days of ordinary life. Saving last is saving never. The anti-budget flips the order. The moment your income lands, a fixed slice moves out automatically into investments before you get the chance to feel it, miss it, or talk yourself out of it. What is left is genuinely yours, to spend freely, with no spreadsheet and no guilt. There is one equation that matters, and it is almost insultingly simple. Your income minus your savings equals what you get to spend. Notice what is not in that equation. There is no line for coffee. There is no category for whether you earned the dinner out. Once the savings have moved, the rest is free, because the only financially serious thing you needed to do that month is already done, and you did it in the first 5 minutes. The reason this works has nothing to do with maths and everything to do with you. A budget asks you to make the right call dozens of times a day, every day, forever, and to feel like a failure every time you slip. Nobody wins that fight for long. Automation removes the fight. The decision gets made once, on the day you set it up, and then it runs in the background while you get on with your life. And here is the quiet part. Nobody watching you would ever know it was happening. There is no streak to post, no app to show off, no visible sign of restraint. The work is invisible, and that invisibility is not a side effect. It is the whole point, and it is the first thing real wealth and loud spending will never have in common. The second rule: stop auditing the coffee. There is an entire industry built on the idea that your financial future is hiding inside your daily latte. Skip it, the story goes, and across 40 years that $4 becomes a small fortune. The maths is technically true and almost entirely useless, because it assumes you actually invest the $4, which nobody does. They just feel briefly virtuous for going without, and then quietly wonder why the virtue never shows up in the account. Skipping a coffee you were never going to invest is not a financial strategy. It is a mood. And somewhere in the last few decades, frugality stopped being a tactic and became an identity. People started wearing it. The pride in the cheap haircut, the little speech about never paying for parking, the performance of declining the appetizer so everyone notices you declining it. None of it is wrong exactly. But notice who is doing it. It is almost never the wealthy. The wealthy did not get there by becoming experts at self-denial over small sums. They got there by ignoring the small sums entirely and aiming their attention at the things that actually move. Frugality, as a personality, is something the middle does. The top does not think about the coffee at all because the coffee was never the problem. This does not mean you should be careless. It means you should be honest about scale. Cutting $20 of small pleasures while ignoring $400 of subscription creep, a bloated car payment, and the fact that none of your money is invested is not discipline. It is theatre. The big levers in your financial life are few, and they are boring. What you earn, what you keep, whether what you keep is working. Everything else is rounding error, and the budgeting industry has built a fortune teaching you to obsess over the rounding error while the levers sit there untouched. The third rule is where the real money is won or lost. Guard the gap, not the receipts. The gap is the distance between what you earn and what you spend, and it is the single number that decides whether you build wealth or just cycle income through your hands on its way back out. The great enemy of the gap is not some dramatic mistake. It is a slow, comfortable, almost invisible process that gets nearly everyone. Every time your income rises, your spending quietly rises to meet it. The raise becomes a nicer car. The bonus becomes a bigger apartment. The promotion becomes a lifestyle that now requires the promotion. Your income grows, your gap stays exactly the same, and you are running faster to stand in precisely the same place. Picture two people who got the same raise on the same day. The first one let their life expand to fill it. A better lease, the upgrade on everything they already owned, a slightly nicer version of every week. Within a year, their lifestyle had absorbed the entire increase, and they were back to feeling stretched, just at a higher number. The second person let the raise land somewhere quiet. Half of it went straight into investments before it ever touched their spending. Their life looked almost identical to the year before. From the outside, the first person clearly did better. They had the visible upgrades, the new things, the obvious signs of moving up in the world. But the second person was the one actually getting wealthy, in near silence, while looking like nothing had changed, Run that gap for 5 years and the two of them are no longer living in the same financial universe, even though on paper they earn the same. So the rule is not to freeze your life forever. It is to protect the gap on purpose. When your income goes up, decide in advance where most of the increase goes and make that decision before the money arrives and starts whispering to you. A simple version is to send half of every raise straight to your savings rate automatically and let the other half genuinely improve your life. You still get to enjoy earning more. You just stop letting every gain evaporate into a slightly more expensive version of the same week. The fourth rule separates people who have money from people who only earn it. Make money you never see do the work. Saving by itself is just delayed spending. Money sitting in a checking account is not wealth, it is potential energy slowly losing value while you feel responsible for keeping it there. Wealth begins the moment money stops being something you hold and starts being something you own. A share of a business. A piece of an index fund that quietly holds hundreds of businesses at once. An asset that earns while you sleep, while you are on holiday, while you are doing absolutely nothing. The difference between spending and owning is the difference between money that disappears and money that multiplies. This is also why real wealth is so hard to see. Spending announces itself. The car, the watch, the logo stretched across the chest, all of it is visible by design because being seen is the entire point of that kind of money. Ownership makes no noise. A portfolio does not flash. Equity in a company does not photograph well. The richest person at the dinner table is very often the one you would never pick out of the group, because their wealth is sitting in accounts and assets that broadcast nothing at all. The person with the louder car has more attention. The person with the quieter portfolio has more freedom. And freedom, not luxury, is what the money is actually for. The ability to walk away from a job that is grinding you down. The ability to take a month off without your stomach dropping. The ability to make decisions out of choice instead of fear. That is the real luxury, and you cannot finance it. You can only own your way into it. Optionality compounds in a way that is hard to feel until you have it. The first asset you own buys you almost nothing, a few dollars of dividends, a number ticking up on a screen. But assets feed assets. What they earn buys more of them, and that grows, and one day you look up and the income from the things you own is quietly closing in on the income from the work you do. That is the moment the whole game changes, because for the first time, you are not the only thing earning money in your life. You have built a second version of yourself, made of capital, that never sleeps and never asks for a day off. The fifth rule is the one people get most wrong about quiet wealth, because they hear everything so far and assume the answer is to deprive yourself into a beige little life. It is the opposite. The fifth rule is to spend loudly on what you actually love and go quiet on everything else. Once your savings have moved automatically and your gap is protected, the money that is left is not something to feel guilty about. It is permission. The mistake is spreading that permission thin across 100 things you do not really care about, out of habit, out of comparison, out of the vague sense that this is just what people at your income are supposed to buy. Most of your spending is exactly that. It is forgettable. It does not make your life noticeably better. It just leaks. The move is to find the few things that genuinely light you up and pour into them without apology, while starving everything that does not. Maybe it is travel, maybe it is food, or books, or one hobby that makes the rest of the week worth getting through. Whatever it is, spend on it like you mean it. And on everything else, the stuff that was only ever filling space, spend almost nothing and feel nothing about it. This is exactly where the anti-budget and stealth wealth turn out to be the same idea, wearing two different outfits. Both are about pointing your money at what is real to you and going silent on everything else. The stealth wealthy do not deny themselves. They simply refuse to spend on being seen. They spend on the things that matter to them and stay invisible to everyone else, and they let the rest go quiet. The anti-budget is just that same instinct, written down as a system you can actually run. So look back at the 5 rules because together they are not really a budget at all. Pay yourself first, then go quiet. Stop auditing the coffee. Guard the gap, not the receipts. Make money you never see, do the work. And spend loudly only on what you love. Notice that not one of them asks you to track a transaction, log a category, or feel like a failure for being a human being with a life. They ask for one decision at the start and a different relationship to money for the rest of it. Here is what never being broke actually means. It does not mean being rich, and it definitely does not mean looking rich. It means the gap between what you earn and what you keep is wide enough and protected well enough that a surprise does not turn into a crisis. It means your money is working in the background whether you are thinking about it or not. It means you have quietly bought yourself the one thing the loud version of money can never afford, which is the freedom to stop performing. The spreadsheet was never the problem. The problem was that you needed one to feel in control, when control was never going to come from watching the small numbers. It comes from setting the big ones once and then letting them run. The people who are never broke are not more disciplined than you are. They just stopped fighting a battle they were always going to lose. They went quiet, and they let the system win it for them. You can do the exact same thing starting with your very next paycheck, and nobody ever has to know.